notes and chord tones, preferably the root. That's the jazz bassist's bread and butter, playing time, playing quarter notes, playing the root of the chord. But as early as Jimmy Blanton and Milt Hinton, we can hear hints of extra things happening in these bass lines, ornaments, if you will, to really propel the lines and inform the groove as they played. We hear these ornaments in the skipping style of Paul Chambers when he played 2 or 4. We hear the ornaments bouncing through the Oscar Peterson trio records with Ray Brown, and we hear these ornaments being fully utilized by masters like Stanley Clarke and Ron Carter on any one of the records they did on the CTI label in the 70s. Adding these jazz ornaments, as I call them, gives the music a little extra lift when you need it. It comments on what's happening in the sphere of the song, but also pushes the groove along and makes things swing a little harder when you need that lift. So today I'm going to show you 4 techniques that you can use to add a little lift to your walking quarter note lines and kick the band just a little bit when you need to. For each of the examples, I'm going to use the same chord, C7. So all of our walking rules, which I talked about here, will apply to what's happening in the line that I'm constructing. Check this out. Number 1, anticipation. That and a 4 in jazz is a very, very powerful beat. It's also a wonderful way to transition in and out of A sections or into the bridge or into the top of a new chorus. I love to use this to push the groove ahead a little bit, to give the soloist a little bit of a lift, and especially if you're working with a good drummer, they tend to give the and a 4 a little more importance when you're rounding the corner. Now sometimes this anticipation idea can land on the and of 1, creating what we tend to call a drop, something very common on the bass. Ray Brown comes to mind when it comes to this kind of rhythm. He was known to drop a bomb and just make the whole room shake. Number 2, a ghost note, often referred to as a skip. Now this is one of the coolest and most common ways to kind of propel your line, and also probably the most annoying way when it's overused. I hear this used a couple of different ways. One is more of a one note, kind of one finger skip that I hear Paul Chambers playing a lot. The other kind of ghost is the kind of note you'll hear more electric bass type players doing, where you actually play a ghost note on a lower string and you come back to play the top string. Again, these are great when you pepper them through your playing, maybe once or twice a chorus, maybe for using as a transition, but don't overdo it. These get really tired really fast. Number 3, the pull-off. Now this is very common Ron Carter language, Stanley Clarke language. These guys were amazing at executing the pull-offs. They played them with excellent rhythm. They knew exactly where to put them in. Now Now the whole idea of the pull-off is to make a note happen with your left hand. You're pulling down and away from the string and really making a note happen, immediately followed by a note happening in your right hand. Ron Carter uses this technique extensively. So many great records that Ron played on, you can hear him utilizing this technique, and he's the best at it, really. He can make multiple notes happen between different hands, and he's very seamless with it. I use it just to give me a little bit of a lift into a line, maybe descending down to that open G and then using that G as a pull-off note really kicks the groove, in my opinion. Here's an example of a way you could play a 2-5-1 using a pull-off kind of idea. Number 4, the rake. So undoubtedly, Ray Brown probably did this better than anybody else. The idea of the rake technique is to use your open strings going from high to low and making a triplet rhythm as you descend. Now the cool thing about the rake is that it doesn't matter if the notes on the open strings are in the key or not. The idea is to get to the note after the triplet and really put a lot of emphasis on that note. So the rake is essentially a setup technique to get you to a really money note. Now check this out. I'm going to play a rake in the key of D flat major, which doesn't really have a G natural or a D natural, but I'm going to use the open G and D strings. It works when you play a good triplet and you're swinging. Now the idea with this is that over time you can internalize some of these techniques and combine approaches, like this. There's nothing like playing a great, solid, swinging quarter note, but sometimes I feel like I want to put a little something extra in. Something to flavor my line a little bit and maybe push the music in a certain direction. My favorite example of all time of someone using these kind of ornaments on a record has to be, hands down, Ron Carter on Stanley Turrentine's 1970 CTI album, Sugar. One needs only to listen to the title track to hear him doing all 4 of these techniques at any given time in the song. It's really, really amazing. Now I got to play in Stanley Turrentine's band for a couple years, and when I had a chance, I sat down with him and I asked him to tell me about that session because it's one of my favorite records of all time. And what Stanley told me was that the drummer on the session, Billy Kay, was playing so simple and just holding it down. He said that Ron was trying to get him to react. So Ron did a lot on that track. I tend to think of it as Ron really giving Stanley a lot to play off of, because if you listen to the record, Stanley is playing off of what Ron is doing on the bass as far as these ornaments. In fact, about 3 minutes into the record, you can hear Ron do an amazing kind of a syncopated thing and Stanley play it right back to him. This track always blew me away because just by walking, Ron is directing the flow of the music. Another lesson I learned from this track is that Billy Kay is playing really, really simple, which allows Ron to be a little freer with how he comments on the music and what he's playing on top of everybody else. What does this mean? This means that you wouldn't necessarily hear Ron playing like this with Tony Williams, because Tony Williams played in a completely different style. Another wonderful example is Ray Brown on Quincy Jones's Walking in Space album. The way him and Grady Tate play on Killer Joe is amazing. And Ray is putting all kinds of ornaments in because Grady is locking it down and playing quarter notes, which kind of frees Ray up. So think about when it's appropriate to use these kind of techniques and when it might favor the music to do so. Also, check out both of these records if you haven't. They are must-haves. Do you have a favorite ornament that you like to use? Do you have a favorite moment on a record where somebody played an amazing kind of extra thing that really stands out to you? If so, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. An ornament is just that. Too much of a good thing is too much. Remember what your job is. Repeat after me. Serve the music and have fun. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And of course, if you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button for all original new videos every single week of a jazz bass content coming at you. Until next time, take care of yourself and please love your neighbor.